Hello, Lestat. Did you get my letter? Well, I sent it yesterday. I sent one every day for the past 3 weeks. Did you get it or not? Lestat? What do you mean? I'm not going to be ignored, Lestat. Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. So today I have a tag video. This tag has been making the rounds and I've been watching some videos on it and I just had to do it because I think it's fabulous. This is the tag, You're a Psycho, I guess book tag. Although I'm not going to be discussing a book today, but we'll get to that. This was created by Mr. Morningstar, who is, I believe, a relatively new booktuber. I'll link his channel below, as well as some of the other booktubers who have done this tag. So this is what psychos, sociopaths, and or monstrous villains in fiction, now I'm going to extend this to film for my purpose today, have I related to on a personal level? I think this is a great question and it really got me thinking. But before we get to my tag, I did get to the mailbox before Batilda today. And I'm going to do a little mail opening. Okay, someone sent me a bunch of books. I got cash too. For Biscuits for Lily. Okay, thank you. Dear Regina, I've been a voiceless fan of your channel for quite some time. I wonder if I have a few of those out there. If I do, thank you for being a fan. All right, so David Scott sent me 3 books. Wow. 14 Tales 2, and Delicate Soul. Okay, then he goes on to explain a little bit about who he is. And I know you're extremely busy and hope that at the very least you'll be able to give these books a read. All right, I will try to get to these. I have really put out there that I'm not accepting ARCs at the moment, mostly ebooks, because I'm way behind on that. It just happens when you have a booktube channel, you get sent a lot of stuff, and for the first couple years of my channel, I really tried to keep up with it, and it's becoming more difficult. But thank you, David, for these books. I will definitely try to get to them soon and let you know what I think. It's nice to be appreciated. And speaking of that, before I get to the main tag, I wanted to let you know that I did start a Patreon page. I'm going to link it below. I just began it. I'm sort of just feeling it out. I already have a few patrons, so I'm very appreciative of that. And I thought it was a way to just kind of help pay for a few things in my studio, like the Adobe subscription that I use every month, which, if you know what I'm talking about, it runs around $50 a month, which does add up. I don't monetize my channel. That may change in the future. Now I know that YouTube has started running an ad before my videos, which I'm not really happy about. I don't get any of that money. I guess it's been a change in their policy. Whatever. I'm happy to use this platform, and sorry you have to sit through the ad, but I really don't put ads on my channel. I don't plan to either. But that being said, if you would like to support the channel through Patreon, completely voluntary, which is how I like it. It's not forcing anyone to do anything they don't want to do. I have 3 separate tiers. Each tier includes a vlog. So these are informal short vlogs outside of the setting usually, and I'll be posting those once a week, plus free ebooks just for joining. Then it goes up where you can get more perks, including a personalized monthly reading, tarot reading from our own Batilda, which is in video form for entertainment only, although we've gotten a lot of feedback from her horoscopes that they're very accurate. Just saying. All right, so that's that. If you want to check it out, please do below. I'd appreciate your just checking it out, maybe watching the first vlog, and consider becoming a patron. Okay, so moving on to the tag. So I'm assuming this was supposed to be for a work of fiction, but I'm going to extend this to one of my favorite films. So the psycho, sociopath, etc. that I relate most to is Alex from, not the Bookubus, from Fatal Attraction, played by the incredible Glenn Close. So I will be discussing this film with lots of spoilers, so just to warn you. So Fatal Attraction came out in 1987, a psychological erotic psychological thriller directed by Adrian Lyne. His films always have a great look to them, even the extremely campy ones. I've always loved his films. Jacob's Ladder, which is a great one. 9.5 Weeks, which is pure camp and lots of fun. Yeah, so why do I love this film and why do I love Alex? Her name's Alexandra Alex Forrest. So when writing a villain, it's always best if you can make them three-dimensional and real, as opposed to just like a flat villain, evil, like, oh, I'm just evil character. That doesn't, at least for me, create as much interest as a villain that you can sympathize with. In good writing, often the villain is the shadow side of the hero. A lot of times you'll even see this scene in movies and in books perhaps where the villain and the hero kind of face off, and it's usually after the villain has like captured the hero and brought him in or her into like his world or her world. And then there's often the speech of, we're not so different, you and I. What makes the villain different, though, is the villain will cross the line into like an evil act that the hero will maybe skirt around but not quite enter. And I mean, this has come across in my own writing. I actually wrote in my book Black Magic, my novel about a rock star and a vengeful ex-girlfriend. I went into this world, and a lot of times in my books, and not everyone likes this, but my villains are sometimes more sympathetic than the hero, because the hero is very flawed. The villain is somebody who's just kind of lost control, and those are the types of villains that I find fascinating. And Glenn Close's character, Alex in Fatal Attraction, really fits that bill. So Michael Douglas plays a character named Dan Gallagher, who is a lawyer, and he lives in Manhattan. So this is a very New York story. I lived in New York at the time, and it really does capture the feel of the city at that time. It's changed a lot since then. So Dan is a successful lawyer. He's married. He has a dog and a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. So he's got it all together. But maybe he's a little bored. Maybe he's got a little bit of the 7-year itch, if you know what I mean. He meets Alex, who's also a professional. I'm not really sure what she does, but I don't think she's a lawyer, but she works in some kind of like corporate world where they meet, and instantly they have an attraction for each other, and it starts very casually with drinks, and it escalates into a very passionate one-night stand. Then the one-night stand extends for the whole weekend, and by the end of this weekend, Dan has got himself in a real mess with this woman who wants much more than he is willing to give her. And she loses it and starts to stalk him, and it escalates from there. But what I find so great about her character is, and it's a combination of three things: the script, the director, and the actor, Glenn Close especially, who brings these layers to this character where even the first time I watched this, I felt sympathy for her, because also Dan is not a nice guy. In my book, Black Magic, my protagonist, Rob Sweeney, is not a nice guy either. He's a cad. Michael Douglas in this movie, Dan, is a cad, meaning that he's very casual about just having this fling and just kind of walking away from it. That's great if both people are on the same page with that, but that's rarely the case, I think. And there's always a danger when you go into this kind of relationship with someone, because you never know how they're going to react. And we've seen this play out in real life. Like this, there have been comparisons made, and I think it's true, to like the Jodi Arias case, where this young woman murdered her lover, and not to condone what she did, but she went completely off the rails. And I think it happens to people when they're not even aware of what they're doing, not to excuse it, but it's like they don't start off wanting to be a murderer, is my point. And Alex in this film, I think she's a career woman. She's in her 30s. She's a mature woman. She's living in this fabulous loft. Everything's painted white. That's another thing about this film that's really good. The art direction is very good. Art direction in Adrian Lyne's film are always really good. They're always kind of hazy, the cinematography, especially from this time period. And she's kind of like always presented wearing like white or black costumes, good costuming. It's almost, and good symbolism, because she's like a blank slate in a way. She's presented, or maybe she even believes herself to be this career woman. She's not married, no kids, she's mature, she's in her 30s, she has a good job, but she's like empty, she's empty, and maybe not even empty. She doesn't even realize how empty she is until she gets triggered by this passionate weekend. She's like, I'm a good cook, let me cook you dinner. That's also a big red flag. When someone wants to cook you dinner, that's a sign that they're taking the relationship a lot more serious. Like in the case of Jodi Arias, bouncing back to that, they started out, this couple. I'm not saying that he deserved it at all. He's completely the victim. But the red flags were there for her unhinged behavior. Like she was stalking him, slashing his tires, crawling through the dog door at night to get into bed with him. Now, that might seem like sexy at the time, but when someone is crawling through a dog door, they're degrading themselves, all right? They're out of control. And there's something like with the ego, I think, and I'm getting a little Freudian, where the ego will do whatever it can to protect itself from being degraded. And there's a hunger there to be validated by this object, the lover. The more you degrade yourself, the more the ego is going to lash out either at yourself. It plays out in this film with her suicide attempt conveniently in front of him, or it's going to, you take it out on yourself, or you're going to take it out on the object. At that point, there's really no other place to go with this. And also the Alex character, and I think it's reflected in the costume design with the black and the white, she is a black or white thinker. She's not capable of sitting back and saying, this really hurt when this guy went back to his wife. I can't handle the rejection. Maybe I should learn from this experience. I should go to therapy, figure out what's going on with me. And maybe I shouldn't go after married men anymore because it's too painful. But she's past that. She's not able to really reflect. And, that's what makes her a great character, because it's real. That happens in life. And although I would never act on the way she did, and thankfully most of us wouldn't, I can relate to that emotion. Absolutely. I can relate to her pain and her hurt. And I think the way Glenn Close played it was really connecting with that pain and that hurt. Now, some people might look at that and not see any sympathy for her character. They might just say it like, oh, she's just some crazy psycho bitch. We need to get rid of her. And what's interesting about this film is that there was an alternate ending that played out to test audiences, and they didn't like the alternate ending where Dan gets arrested and I think in the alternate ending, Alex sets him, she does kill herself, but she sets him up to be the murderer and does sort of like a double twist at the end. Audiences didn't like that. So the new ending, or the one we saw in theaters, was the wife shoots Alex right through the heart in the bathtub. But she is about to attack with a knife, and she is out of control, and she does kind of need to be put out of her misery at that point. But I think that was a much more satisfying ending, because now the family's restored. The spurned wife takes back the power. And Michael Douglas's character at the end is kind of just like a meek man. He knows that he did wrong and he's going to have to pay for it. It's fabulous. It's a fabulous drama. Battle of the Sexes. It says a lot about the idea of, especially for that time, the message that a lot of women, for my generation kind of coming up, was you got to be a career woman, be like a man, treat relationships that way. And I'm generalizing when I say be like a man, because, this is not black and white at all. But that was the message, is just you shouldn't be clingy in relationships. You should just take what's yours and be casual about it. That's the way to be. Well, I think life has taught us that it's not that easy. It's a lot more complicated than that. People do get hurt. Not saying or judging anyone that has like casual relationships, because some people can do that and be fine with it. A lot of people can't. A lot of us have unresolved trauma. I know just from my personal experience, I, have dealt with this in therapy, and it was really a life-changing experience, but it took me a long time to get where I could even confront my trauma. And it's not to say that this makes people insane or act out the way Alex did, but it does make me have sympathy for her. She does this little weird thing in the park when they're running around, and Michael Douglas, he's kind of a doofus in this movie. He pretends like he has a heart attack, and she gets really upset about it. And you see the crazy come out, the mask slips, and you see her craziness where she's like, my father died of a heart attack. And then he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she starts laughing. Another big red flag. And then yet he went back and had one more, lovemaking session with her before he's like, pulling up the pants and being like, okay, well, that was great. Now I can go back to my family. I'm feeling very satisfied. And it was nice knowing you. And he's like trying to walk out the door. She's not having it. And her actions become more and more escalated, where she's vacillating between homicidal rage and self-loathing to the point of like suicidal acting out. That's how extreme these emotions are. And I think this film really captures the truth of that. You see this character, it's like the woman scorned archetype, I guess you could say. You see this character come out in other movies that I think are less successful because they're a lot less nuanced. Doesn't mean they're not fun, but like a movie like another Michael Douglas movie, Basic Instinct, which I love, but it's very campy. The femme fatale in that movie is much more one-dimensional. Of course, that movie has one of my favorite stills of all time with Michael Douglas wearing the V-neck, which is a great screensaver for my computer. There's another shot in the film that I really love, and this shows the sensitivity of the director, is right before she comes flying out of the bathtub, trying to kill the wife, or Dan, with a knife, and right before the wife, shoots her, there's a scene of her underwater. Like, the idea is that, well, Michael Douglas, drowns her. Of course, she's got to come back, because it wouldn't be a movie if she didn't come back. But there's a shot of her face under the water I remember seeing this in the movie theater in like really big close-up on the screen. And you see this, again, a blank slate of a facial expression where she looks innocent and childlike. And you can see like the freckles in her skin, and her eyes are just staring blankly. She's blank, And that really stuck with me about the emotion when you haven't dealt with maybe the trauma of rejection. The emotion that comes up from that rejection is that I'm nothing. I don't exist without you giving me meaning and purpose. So I'm going to latch onto you, in every way I can, because this feeling is too painful. So that is my very psychological, I guess, interpretation of that movie and that role. So this was a fabulous tag. I'm going to tag a few people just because I really would love to hear their takes on this if they haven't done it already. And that's Cam Wolf, Jason from Jason's Weird Reads, and Andrew from Grumpy Andrew's Horror House. I would love to see what they have to say. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.